Hello, guys. Welcome to episode 65 of the Timeless podcast here today. You know, right? It's a special one because you saw me and John last week talking about Black Widow, where we're back again. But this is timey-wimey because we're filming this one first. So who knows, eh? I'm joined with Owen, who's called Tobias Vaughan on the Zoom, uh, and
Tobias Vaughan.
my favourite person, John Cole. I mean,
Packer!
Cook. And we go from there. Obviously, how are you doing, chaps?
I'm all good.
How are we?
Bear with. John's doing
John's
something.
type.
Oh, there we
He's
go.
typing his name out as Pack. It's really sad that you guys can't see the stuff on the actual
Oh,
podcast.
yeah, cheeky.
The names don't pop up.
Well, they don't appear on YouTube.
No, they don't appear. The names
So we
aren't
could
there.
literally write anything abusive that we want to make people laugh, and it wouldn't actually.
Well, yeah,
Okay,
mid
so my
podcast.
name here is Tobias Vaughan, so there you
It's
go.
the other side, mate. It's on your
For
left.
those who can't see it. Or this side.
Yeah,
And I'm Packer.
yeah, you are Packer. But we've also got some more serious things to talk about. It's not been a good week overall. But first, I think because I hyped up in the live show, let's talk about the football on Sunday. 2 days removed. Turns out it came home on the easy jet and not the way we wanted it to come home. Came home. The lads did their best, and overall, I reflect on that. I am still incredibly proud of everyone that is in that squad, everyone on the management team, everyone that did everything to get us to the point where we were at.
Yeah, I mean, if only somebody on your podcast, maybe about 2.5 weeks ago, had correctly predicted every single one of those results, and
You did.
then your hopes might not have been so high, and you wouldn't have had such a letdown.
But
John,
yeah.
No, it is obviously very sad, but that, as I say, is slightly offset by the fact that I'm 7 for 7 on those predictions.
So you're feeling quite happy about yourself.
Quite happy with myself, yeah. Not very happy generally, because I'd have loved. I don't like being wrong normally, but I would love to have been wrong on that particular occasion.
And you came this close to being wrong as well. You came this close. And I think that's something we do need to look at when we talk about this, is that England did take Italy literally all the way in that game. It wasn't Italy were the better team. In the second half, undoubtedly, they dominated the game, and that's why we conceded. However, England in the first half were on fire. In extra time, I'd even say England were the better squad. But
I feel personally that we allowed them back into the game. I think that with 5 to 10 minutes to go before half time, it was clear that they were coming back into the game. And actually, I was quite desperate for the half-time whistle. I think had some positive substitutions been made at half-time, we could really have taken them.
Absolutely.
In the second half, a lot of the players already looked exhausted.
Yeah, it's just a shame that those changes weren't made a little bit sooner. And that's great with hindsight, but I think if Grealish, for example, would come on at half time, you might be looking at a slightly different situation.
Yeah.
Because Italy wouldn't have been able to be as dominant because it would have been a fresh pair of legs coming at them. They'd have had to sit back a bit more.
And that's the beauty of hindsight. But the thing I want to talk about most is obviously we can talk. We've talked about our support on Twitter. I know you have, John. You put a lovely post out on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well, I believe. However, it wasn't all smiles, and it turned quite vile. In not just football fans being annoyed at footballers for being bad, they took it in the racist direction. And not only did the Marcus Rashford mural get defaced in Manchester, there was lots of attacks on Twitter. Lots of people obviously putting the blame on Rashford, Sancho, and Saka, the three young lads who had the balls to take a penalty for the country in the last seconds of the game. These guys are young, the young lads, and the fact that honestly, I think everyone here in the podcast will agree. All jokes aside, where a minority, let's put out there, a minority of England fans took this was disgusting. And I think the fact that I think, especially over the last 24 hours, since the attacks, we've seen people come forward. I don't know whether if you saw the lovely tweet Harry Kane put out today or yesterday. But overall, guys, what's your reaction to this? Because it is incredibly frustrating at the nation.
There is no place for there's no place for racism or indeed any form of discrimination within a civilized society. I personally feel that this is something that isn't necessarily about football. I think that we need to actually look at what has changed in this country over the last 5 to 10 years that has led people to believe that such behaviour is either acceptable or that the police won't bother to stamp down on it. But, because these, let's not get it wrong. These are attitudes that have always existed, but up until 5 to 10 years ago, for a good 20 odd years since the early 90s, there were things that people didn't really say in public. Something shifted somewhere to enable them to do that. Now, I'm not going to get all political and etc. because people have got different opinions on that, and those that agree with me will agree with me. Those that don't won't, and nobody will change their mind. But I do think that we need to look at what it is that has suddenly taken what was a kind of niche view by a few knuckle-dragging morons and made it quite so brazen, made it quite so public. Because that reflects badly, not just on those people, it reflects badly on all of us. Because anybody outside of the UK, and let's not get this wrong, it's not just an English problem, it's a problem that Scotland has as well. It's a problem that Wales has to a degree. Anybody outside of the UK will be looking at it and saying that is a problem for all of their society because the good people are not stopping it.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating to see, and it's never right. I mean, it's frankly bizarre to be in such a a mostly progressive world now where we have months and times to celebrate people's differences, and yet this reels back. And obviously, like John said, it's not football is kind of just the catalyst for what is an underlying problem. But the fact this all kicked off after a few young lads took some penalties is fundamentally baffling.
For
And
years,
yes,
they've been saying that in football, racism isn't tolerated, and that's with any club, any team, any player, and the fans. That's always been widely broadcast, but yet we still have this problem. And yeah, I don't quite understand what it is, why this is still an issue.
The worst thing about it for me is that it was inevitable. The minute that Rashford scored, the minute that Rashford missed his penalty, you knew what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You knew that if a black player missed a penalty, in spite of everything that they've contributed through this tournament, it was going to happen. Because you look at the treatment that Raheem Sterling's been getting in the press for years.
Yeah. I remember that time. I know this is kind of a, because it shows how silly it is, how much negative press Raheem did get. Remember when he got a front page thing about him because he went into a Greg's? Like, that's how fundamentally ridiculous the news would attack him. Is the fact this man can't go in and enjoy simple pleasures without being harassed by the papers.
This is a lad who got lambasted for buying his mum a house.
Yep.
A mum that had worked 3 jobs when he was a kid after coming here at the age of 2 as an immigrant from Jamaica. mum that had worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table for him and his sister, to keep them educated, to get and put these attitudes to him where he's gone and playing for the fucking best football team in the country, and he's playing for his country, and he was getting criticised for buying her a house. I'm sorry, but if I was in his position and I was a footballer for a big money club and I was getting paid hundreds of £1,000s a week, literally the first thing that I'd do would be buy my dad a house.
Yep. Yeah,
At the
exactly.
end of the day, he's earned that money. He can do whatever the hell he likes with it, and it's no one else's opinion,
Yeah.
to say what he should or shouldn't do with it.
Yeah, but the problem is that argument applies to every white footballer. White footballers are not criticised for doing things like that. It's only when somebody is black that the press turns around and starts criticising them for it.
Exactly.
So it's a huge race issue.
And again, I think we need to go back, especially into especially in the case of Sancho, Rashford, and Bukayo Saka, because yes, although 2 of them are older than me, especially in Bukayo Saka's case, this was his first ever tournament. He had the gumption, and he put it all on his back. He was the 5th penalty taker. He gave it his best shot. Yes, he missed, but this lad's 19, and he's getting attacked by a myriad of people who are much older, and I'm going to be honest here, do not have the balls to do what he did, would have done a lot worse than he has, but exactly. And again, I do want to reiterate, this is not a problem that he missed the penalty, because I guarantee if it was a white player, the same kind of harassment would not have been there.
Yeah.
He would have got harassed, but not because of their race, but because they missed the penalty. And that is the problem. And I'm going to say this now to I'm not saying that any of my viewers are, hopefully you're all lovely, but if any viewers have these views that you don't like them because they're race, leave, unsubscribe, don't watch, I don't want you. I don't want anything like that here, because I think it's awful. It's no. And if I see it on Twitter, you're blocked. I cannot fathom anybody want to do that, especially, imagine, obviously, especially in the case of Saka, I'll be honest, I hadn't known much about until this tournament. He's 19. Think of the pressure on his shoulders now. He's probably scared to look at social media or go outside or anything, because he's never experienced this.
He'll have good people around him supporting him.
That's we got to hope.
He'll have both in the England setup and at his club and at Arsenal. There'll be good people around him supporting him.
Absolutely.
I think Jim Davidson's just unsubscribed, by the way.
Yes. There we go. I'll tell you what, though.
He loves a bit of Doctor Who chat, Jim.
I'll tell you what, though, right? This is a bit of a joke or a horrible situation. It meant yesterday when I watched the Downing Street press conference, it was the first time where I actually agreed with Boris Johnson on something, and that's a surprise. Even though Boris Johnson had a risky past with discrimination himself, so
but racist calls out racism, shocker.
Yeah, but it is what it is. But that's our roundup of the World Cup.
Calling the kettle black and all that.
Yeah. And again,
well, that's probably not quite the phrase that I should use. Actually.
Yeah. Yes. The views are Owen Luckhurst at Owen.co views and do not represent.
Owen Luckhurst has been removed from the Timeless podcast and all future editions.
But if you're affected by this episode, there are numbers that are available.
I do want to say this to either any young England fans, or even to the lads themselves, even they're not going to watch this. My only words to those guys is, I think believe in the system you got. I think believe that eventually there is a high chance you will win silverware with this club and with this nation. I think you are in the best place possible, and I see this team only growing going forward. I believe in Qatar we've also got another good chance of bringing it home. Obviously I've got to believe that starting. But I think this team's only going to grow. I think, especially under the tutelage of Gareth Southgate, I hope he stays on. Did he make every decision that I would have made? No. But am I a football manager? No. So he knows what he was doing. Didn't pay off for him this time. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for the club and for these boys. Anything anyone wants to add to that before we move on to another pillar of...
we were better than 22 other teams. We weren't quite as good as Italy, but come Qatar, Italy are going to be 18 months older. Those two centre backs are going to be 18 months older. They're going to have some really old legs by that point.
Yeah.
We're going to be better. So yeah, roll on next year. Roll on the World Cup.
Yep, let's roll it on. Right now, John wants to. There'll be obviously in not last week's podcast, but the previous podcast, John would have spoke about Disputed Pub, but this time he wants to speak about something else that happened within the Doctor Who community last week. By the time you're watching this, so John, I'll let you explain and let you say your piece on this issue.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of touches on a little bit on what we've already been speaking about respect and etc. Now, as you will know, friends of the show, the Who Addicts had a bit of a problem last week where their Twitter account was deleted because they received hate and harassment after and you'll never believe the heinousity of this, the awful crime they committed. They tweeted a picture of a shelf.
Good heavens!
A shelf.
Now, wasn't even really a shelf.
I mean, this wasn't. Now you'll think, oh my god, what was on this shelf? Was it like racist literature or sort of lewd pornography or something?
Or was it the 2006?
No, it was a or the master tapes of the Weather Planet episode 3. No, they weren't. I won't say that word, dude. They weren't in a collector's house. No, this was a shelf of merchandise, and they simply said, "Wasn't it sad that there's not enough merchandise now as there used to be?" And Twitter went into a shitstorm at them, directed a lot of hate at them, a lot of abuse at them. And I think because obviously we're going to have a lot of Doctor Who fans listening to this, I just wanted to kind of reiterate what I tweeted out about this last week. Doctor Who fandom at the moment appears to be more toxic than it's ever been. There are obviously two extreme sides in relation to the new series. There are those that absolutely love the new series, think it's the bee's knees, think it can do no wrong. There are those that cannot stand it, stopped watching in 2017. And then there's about 98% of us in the middle. Now, I kind of sit in the middle on this. I like the new series. I very much enjoy it. I can accept it's not perfect. But Doctor Who very rarely is. The only part of Doctor Who that's ever been perfect has been season 7.
Series 5?
Not quite perfect.
In my heart.
Yeah, not quite perfect. It's got your Silurian two-part. It's got James Corden.
Oh, I will admit James Corden.
Season 7 doesn't have its version of James Corden.
Right.
So
It's got Inferno. That's great.
for reasonable people that sit in the middle, it's really difficult sometimes to look at this and see the way that reasonable, decent fans get attacked because everybody goes on the defensive over a picture of a fucking shelf. So I'm not going to address this at the NMDs or sort of people that hate the current show because they're not going to listen anyway. They're stuck in their own ways. What I am going to address this at is people that are sort of ardent fans of the current era. And I'm going to say this. You see yourselves as being very much on the right side of the argument because you quite rightly see that on the other side of the argument there's a fair bit of misogyny, etc., etc., etc. You see yourselves as open to other people's views. Very open and accepting, rather. The one thing that you don't ever seem to be able to accept and be open to is somebody that might have a different opinion. You also talk a lot about how Doctor Who is about change and people who don't like the current era don't like change, etc., 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 and they don't understand it. You're right. But it's about something else more than change. It's about humanity and decency and goodness and respect. if you cannot treat people that you may disagree with humanity, decency, and respect, then you've really missed the point of this television show that you love. You really missed something there. And I would suggest people that might have gone back to the Who Addicts last weekend, or to other people previously in their interactions over the new show, I would suggest that they go back and they take a look at those interactions, and they take a look at those friends' interactions, and they ask themselves, what would the doctor say if they were reading what you have written, what you have directed at people, for having the temerity to simply have a difference of opinion, to simply point out that the current state of Doctor Who merchandise is not what it used to be. Because you know what? That's a fact. Absolute cast iron fact. You can back it up with statistics.
Yep.
Absolute fact. Ask yourself how that looks. Ask yourself how it makes the 98% of us in the middle of this argument feel. Because I personally am getting to a point where actually there are parts of this show that I don't want to engage about. And I love this show. But there's 1 or 2 episodes I'm dreading coming out of Alex's box. Because if I, God forbid, express a negative opinion about a Chibnall era episode, you can get crucified for it, even if it's god awful. And believe me, there are 1 or 2 that are god awful, just as there are in any era, except season 7.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was all I wanted to say, really, just to kind of get on my soapbox a little bit and plead to people who consider themselves to be reasonable to actually look back over what they are saying, what they are doing, and the way they are treating people, and ask themselves how reasonable they are actually being. And maybe, just maybe, and I want to cover your children's ears because there's a swear coming up here, grow the fuck up.
Yeah. I just want to add to that by saying as well, I think there was a thing
I
on
mean,
Twitter.
that was a bit of a mic drop moment. I'm not sure it could be added to, but go on.
I know. Don't worry. I'll upload that bit on Twitter and it'll end with that, and then they have to
sometimes.
I'll clip it for Twitter.
The best host needs to know when to just go.
But I was just going to say this is an important thing as well, which again you touched on, but because it's always, I see this on Twitter as well, come up as people can share their opinions. I absolutely agree with that. I think free speech is fine, but there is a difference between having a difference of opinion and then attacking somebody for having a different opinion. Those are 2 very different things. It's like, for example, you've seen on the show, me and John don't always agree on everything. There are things we disagree on. Do we get heated debates? Yes. We don't leave that argument going, oh, you should blah, blah, blah because you disagree with me. We just have, because you can have a debate with someone or disagree with them without hurting them or being harmful.
Yeah.
There's a way of speaking. There's a way of speaking to people. Like, for example, I understand if you don't like the Whittaker era and the Chibnall era of Doctor Who. I do. But don't then say to somebody, or if you're on the other side of the coin, don't say to them, oh, they're sexist or they hate Jodie Whittaker, because that's not the case. Like John said, you cannot, and again, it's not everyone. I want to put this out as well. Like John said, it's not everyone. It's literally 1% on one side, 1% the other, that will just attack you for absolutely no reason. And look, I love Jodie Whittaker as an actor. I like her as the Doctor. I'm personally on side of, I think Series 12 was one of the better series of modern Doctor Who. I know John is in a similar boat with me there. I don't really know Owen's opinions, but
I mean, my opinions. I've always liked Jodie. I think she's amazing. I've always said that the writing hasn't always been amazing. So don't attack me on that just because I've said something a bit negative.
And this is the point. We're at a point now where if you have the slightest negative thought about the current era, your immediate reaction is, shit, can I say that?
Yep.
I mean, you shouldn't have to be worried about saying something, expressing your own opinions for then other people to then jump on you and say, you're wrong. And I've also experienced recently that there are so many people who have had to back out of the Doctor Who community because of this negativity. And do you know, I find that, quite frankly, sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
driving
you know,
away.
there's no need for people to actually back out for it, and there's no need for this hatred. And I just wish people would get on and just deal with it.
Exactly. And like John said, I think those people that get into those actually heated arguments, again, there's a difference between a debate and an argument. I think that's very clear. I'm not saying that everyone should agree with the same thing because that defeats the purpose. But the Doctor Who and the Doctor is all about bringing people from different places and different ideologies together and celebrating that and consistently moving. And like, it's baffling to me that there's such this negativity and people getting attacked. And again, this, for example, John, this shows how silly it is that John had to come up with this. And what kickstarted all this? A picture of a shelf. And it left, I mean, I'm very good friends with the Who addicts, and so are we know them. And it's sad to see them having to leave Twitter. Yes, they've left. I believe they don't make as much Doctor Who content now because of the current era, and that's fine. If they, and again, I think part of that, I know they said that in the video, is because of the shit they get. Because if they don't like something, yes, they're not enjoying it, but as well, they're getting shit on because they just don't enjoy the writing. It's not for them, and that's fair enough. I'm
I
not a
think at
massive
the end of
fan
the
of the
day,
Hartnell era, you know.
if you can't accept other people's opinions, and if you know like all the NMDs, not my doctors and all that. If you can't accept it for what it is, why are you still watching it?
As I
Do
say,
you even seriously consider yourself a fan? That's the questions you've got to ask yourself. Can you be that loyal to the show?
I don't consider, as I say, I wasn't addressing that at NMDs because they're never going to listen. They're never going to change their ways
Yeah.
because actually they don't dislike the show because of the quality of it. They like it for other reasons. I think they dislike it for other reasons. What I'm saying is that there are people out there who consider themselves to be better or reasonable. They're the ones who really need to listen and have a fucking look at how they're conducting themselves.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where we're gonna leave this part of that, because again, this could be a fun podcast because we've literally got one of the most ambitious 60s Doctor Who scripts to talk about in a little bit. But before we leave all this, I want to say that this podcast, they have a lot of fun. It's always a platform for me to talk about stuff. And I think one of my most viewed videos. It's not even a podcast. It was me talking about disability and stuff. They're I think I don't want to be making videos on. I don't want to putting this stuff out there. To be honest with you, I wish it wasn't a thing to have to talk about. I wish it never. So does John. So does Owen. We could be here talking about how great the Doctor Who community is right now. But instead, we have to come here and spend 10, 15 minutes talking about how there is a very, very large minority ruining it for most people and making some people not feel safe.
Yeah.
And, especially we're quite a tight knit group anyway, so we'll bring each other up, when we need to. But there are some people that don't have those things to fall back on. And I think just my main thing is just think before you tweet. Don't be a dickhead. And if you think you can do such a better job, why don't you contact the BBC yourself, run Doctor Who, and see how quickly it takes for it to get cancelled? And not in the Twitter sense, I mean in the literal sense, mate, because you've got no chance of knowing how to run a television show.
And show how much people will then end up giving you hate because they don't like the way you're doing it.
Exactly. So
I'd love to be in a position where we're here in 3 or 4 months' time, or 6 months' time, or a year's time, and actually we're talking about positive things in fandom, and we're not talking about the latest drama that's kicked off.
I wonder how long it will take to change.
But I have very little faith in that happening.
Yeah, and that's sad. But like I said, the next segment of the podcast will be back to regular fun, and we'll be chatting about some evil corporations and some Cybermen and the second appearance of Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. Is this the first appearance where he's the Brigadier? And I believe also the first appearance of Sergeant Benton. I know John Levine was in another episode, but is this correct?
There are places
As I remember
all my
life.
Some
Some have changed.
They
some
did
for-
it! They finally really did it!
The John Cook Alex Kingdom cover album coming out 2022.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to record a covers album. We can plug it on the Timeless podcast every week.
Yes. Recreate hits like John Levine's In My Life, specifically the John Levine version.
I could just cover songs by Doctor Who stars.
What other ones you got in your back pocket?
I don't know.
Fraser Hines,
Tom Pertwee,
who's Doctor Who?
I could do Night and Day by Billy Piper.
Nice.
I'm trying to think now. A bit of what's it called Imagination, Lee John.
Nice. You could do Jamie Where's Your Trousers. It's like it could be on the.
I should be so lucky.
It could be it could be on the deluxe.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to do a Kylie track, it'd be Better the Devil, You Know.
Nice. Obviously, Peter Capaldi's got that album coming out, so maybe look at that and listen and pick your favourite from that.
Yeah, so. Peter has got an album coming out. I can give that a listen and pick one of those. I could sing Button Moon by Peter Davison.
Button Moon. Wasn't that a TV show back in the day?
Yes, and he recorded the theme tune to it. He wrote and recorded the theme tune.
Follow Mr. Spoon.
Yeah.
Good luck to anyone singing the Gallifreyan Buckingham by Colin Baker.
That was Peter Davison.
Ironically, that was my sister's favourite show growing up.
He's actually performed the theme tunes to a couple of the shows he appeared in. He's like a little Dennis Waterman.
Wrote the theme tune.
Yeah, exactly. He's like a little Dennis Waterman.
He
sang the theme tune to Button Moon. He sang the theme tune to Campion as well, actually.
There once was a show called Button Moon. Do.
Oh God. I'm still off.
I don't know where we go from that.
That's literally the only little Britain impression you can get away with doing these days.
Yeah.
Just you keep me near, I'll be so good for Button Moon.
God.
Thank you. I'm here all week.
Yes. There we go.
It will be at this
Please
rate.
don't ask for encores.
So, you guys, who wants to do the introduction, like the synopsis to the invasion? Because God forbid I'll forget something in the setup.
I think I'll let John take this one.
Go on, Jonathan.
On the spot. Okay. Well, I will. In that case, I will give you an introduction to the invasion. I'll just waffle for 30 seconds or so whilst I get the details up on my little telephonic device in front of me.
I will say, me and John have watched it recently. Owen listened to it on vinyl, if I'm not mistaken. Was it on vinyl?
I just listened to the audio of it, which was a rip from the CD.
I thought you at least like listened to it on vinyl. Did you listen to it while at work?
They don't have. Did you listen it on vinyl?
Did you listen to it at work? Like, did you listen to it at work on the speakers?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh God. Go to the Who shop.
Loud in the shop.
Go to the Who shop. If there's a classic episode that I can't be bothered to watch and we're reviewing it, you'll be listening to that episode on the day you go down, probably.
So it depends if it's available as an audio on its own. Yeah.
Anyway, John, take it away.
So the invasion production code VV. Series 6, 8 episodes, sat between the Mind Robber and the Crotons. It was broadcast in November and December 1968, so in the run-up to Christmas 1968, when Lily the Pink was #1 by the Scaffold that Christmas. The Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe arrive in present-day London, although, of course, it's the late 60s, so it's late 60s London. And immediately encounter a mysterious corporation run by Mr. Tobias Vaughan, who has a wonderful henchman called Parker. They also encounter a military unit called Unit, headed up by the now Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart, who we last saw in The Web of Fear. You see him in strange 3D animated colour in The Web of Fear in August, actually. And there's clearly something going on with the corporation, which I want to say is called International Electronics or International Electromatics or something.
Electromatics.
International Electromatics. Yeah. So there's
I've
lots
listened to it
of,
so many times.
there's lots of espionage style stuff going on around the corporation, but what on earth is going on? We don't actually really find out until halfway through, when at the end of episode 4, a Cyberman turns up. No, so on top of all this, there is also a mysterious space shuttle just in space, just outside of Earth.
Yep.
You know,
on the dark side of the moon.
Essentially, Vaughn is working with the Cybermen. He's trying to use them to take over the world. But Cybermen being Cybermen, they're not really down for humans running things. And as a result, you get a cyber invasion. What I really like about this is that it's one of very few there are stories in Doctor Who that don't actually tell you who the baddie's going to be. So when the baddie turns up, it is a bit of a shock. Or it would have been in 1968 when you were first watching it, you know.
Yeah.
It's called The Invasion. It's not like one of the numerous Dalek stories where Of the Daleks is in the title, and then the cliffhanger at the end of episode 1 is a bloody Dalek.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, we didn't see that.
Oh no. Yeah. Now I have to say, I've seen this story once before. You guys might have seen it, but I've listened to it numerous times. And I have to admit, I still really enjoy it. I still think it's a very good Patrick Troughton Cyberman story. I only legitimately have one criticism, but I won't get into that until unless you guys have no criticisms, in which case I'll get that out of the way first. But do you guys think it's flawless and therefore I'm an idiot?
Oh, no, let's hear what your criticism is.
Yeah.
I think it could be 6 parts. It doesn't need to be 8. I think episodes part 3 and 4 could be 1 part easily, and you could chop some off. But that's just me. Then again, I did binge it all in one day, and maybe that's why it became a bit too much for me for part 8. But I've seen that. I watched the War Games, and I enjoy that from start to finish. So maybe
there's a lot of running around in the first half of it, but yeah. I'll admit I quite enjoy the running around. You know, because it's kind of like, it's a little bit kind of Avengers-y. It's a little bit like that kind of, a little bit more kind of action hero Doctor Who type stuff. So the first half of it, if anything, is more like a Pertwee story than a Troughton story, which is probably why I like it.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I do think though that like it's one of those things where the interaction, I also find as well the interactions episodes, especially 3 where they're talking to the scientist, for only them to kind of get killed off, it sort of doesn't really lead anywhere. And that's, but again, it's a very minute criticism. You know, I still, let's be honest, it's one of Troughton's best. It's one of the Cybermen's best. It's grand. It's you know they're going all out here. They're going balls to the wall with the you know how grand and amazing it is. And when it hits, it hits really well. But I just think in parts 3 and 4, I struggled, and I just found myself going toward my phone a bit. But it's my new criticism, because again, these weren't viewed to be binged, so you sort of have to take that into account. I do with some classic Who's, you know, especially when it's not bad, it's just boring. That's when I go, okay, well they're trying to pad it out for numerous weeks. I understand, but obviously watching it back to back, it can get a bit tenuous. You're just like, oh, Doctor, what's going on with this? The Doctor goes, well, Jamie, you know. I was like, right, cool, can we get on, please?
The invasion, I mean, there's always something to look at, and there's always, you know, something, you know, going on. I mean, even just, you know, listening to it on audio. I mean, on audio, it probably might be cut down a little bit.
I was going to say, you know, there's always something to look at. For you, it was the till and the shelves because you had it on the stereo.
And God forbid, do not tweet those shelves just in case.
Yeah, of course, no.
But yeah, it's visually just iconic. There's just something just so amazing about it. I just love watching it.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of Cybermen stories, I mean, as I've probably mentioned before, story-wise, I love Tomb of the Cybermen, but
Yeah.
visually, it's the invasion, as well as loving the story of the invasion. I think it's great. But yeah,
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. I think for me, the Trout and Cyberman story is a rule, and this is a spoiler for whenever we get to the other two. I think they're all hovering around the 8 to 10 out of 10 range for me. I even love the Moon Base. I know some people are not a massive fan. I'm a,
The other three.
Oh, Wheel in Space. Crap.
yeah.
I've not watched Wheel in Space. I need to get around to it. Okay, so the other two I've seen, they're hovering around 8 out of 10 range. I haven't seen Wheel in Space. Forgot. Sorry. Yeah, that's right. Twitter's after me now. I'm cancelled. But yeah, I don't know. I think Trent and Sideman are a great mix. Again, I think unit in the story worked really well. I really like the Brigadier and the Stoker Doctor's relationship because we don't get much of it. I've seen both Web of Fear and this, and I do like how kind of understated it is, especially compared to the Pertwee Brigadier relationship. Well, obviously they still care about each other deep down, but a bit more, a bit more arrogance between the two in like a good way. But like they're a bit more back at each other's throats type thing, where this is more of like a calming sort of relationship where they listen to each other, they take in, and
yeah, and I think that's about. But I think that's a good thing because I think that's about the changing character.
No, I absolutely agree. I agree.
The Third Doctor is very much an anti-authoritarian. He doesn't like being told what to do. So
absolutely,
when you're in a situation where the Doctor's actually got a job, he's never going to get on with his boss.
Oh no, absolutely, absolutely. It's no criticism. I just think that it's kind of nice to see another side of that relationship, especially in a big scale here in the story. And I think overall as well, sometimes you kind of miss this in Classic Who. Like Owen was saying, something's always happening. It's never like there's an invasion coming, so let's sit around for an episode when nothing happens. Like they're always doing something or planning for something or trying to.
Be, shootouts and helicopter chases. And yeah, they seem to be running from pillar to post, and you've got Zoe and what's her name, Isabel, yeah, the photographer, and they end up going after the Doctor and Jamie, and they end up there, and then it's literally the two lots of them. So you got the Doctor and Jamie and Zoe and Isabel. They're sort of like back and forth, and they keep missing each other each time. And then it becomes this whole rescue operation of the Doctor and Jamie trying to save them, whilst also trying to find out what the hell is going on.
Yeah, obviously for me and John, this was obviously parts 1 and 3, I think, are the animated episodes. 1 and 4. And this is, I think, is this the first or second? It's first.
This was the first one they animated. This was animated in 2008, and the animation was actually done by Cosgrove Hall, which for those of us who are around my age is a wonderful thing because obviously Cosgrove Hall were the company that in the 1980s made things like Danger Mouse and Count Duckula. And I think they also made the classic Wind in the Willows series, although that was a different kind of animation. That was like a stop motion thing. Yeah. So to see Cosgrove Hall involved with Doctor Who was brilliant. It's still actually one of my favourite animations because I think that the style of it just works with the 60s sort of spy run around type story that the invasion is.
I agree, and I think one thing that this animation does incredibly well is the backgrounds. Like you go from, I remember there's a scene in, what's the bad guy's name again? The guy in charge of the you go to his office, and then obviously at the beginning of part 2, you see his office again in live action. It looks point for point, like the same thing. Like they did that really well. Whereas in some classics, they more focus on the people and and which is fine because I get budget is budget, but I think this is a very good animation.
I don't know the figures on it, but I think this costs a lot more to do.
I think people may have already sort of like twigged because obviously in Vaughan's office, in the wall, you've also got the cyber planner had also previously appeared in the Wheel in Space. So I suppose, if you're a new fan, then you would never have seen the Wheel in Space. I mean, I don't know, maybe if you've read, the very rare Target novel, or heard it on audio, perhaps.
Do the Who Shop currently have any copies of that very rare Target novel that people could buy?
We do get a few from time to time, so keep an eye out
Keep an eye out, yeah.
on the website. They do pop up every once in a while. So yeah, the cyber planners there. So I think from that point onwards, oh, that's got to be the cyber planner. So it's going to be a cyber invasion. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things as well, which builds and builds and builds for me, with the exception of episodes 3 and 4, where I think it slows a bit, where it's just consistently you're learning new things. You've got a very good back and forth. I mean, Trout and Tariq have been back and forth anyway, but between him and Troughton and Vaughan, especially, there's back and forth between them, where the Doctor and Jamie already know that he's bullshitting them when he's trying to be all kind. He's like, "Oh no, the truck just left." And they know what's going on. They've been through this before. Like they're not falling for his shit. I really like that sort of stuff, and I think it's great. And I like how it fits the story. I like how much of a Bond villain Vaughan is, and the fact that like he uses that man's invention against him, and he's like, "Let's see if it works." And he kills him, and it's all brilliant. And
there's a point in the story that I love about Vaughan's madness. Is obviously because he's sort of under some sort of Cyberman influence in some way, and he's thinks he's got this control over the Cybermen, even though he hasn't. He's got Professor Watkins obviously trying to create this machine to control the Cybermen, and so he then basically gets this gun out, passes it to Professor Watkins, and says, "Oh, go on then, shoot me." And then with that, Professor Watkins just goes, bang, 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 and just blasts all these holes in his chest. And Vaughan just stands there laughing. I mean, he's clearly some sort of like half cyborg at the same time. They've done something to him for him to be still be standing there.
There's that line of dialogue, isn't it, where he goes, "My body might be cybernetic, but my brain is human," and that's kind of his thing. Is that he wants to keep his human brain. He doesn't want to become full Cyberman, and Cybermen are like, the only way you can lead is to become one of us. It's all brilliant. And yeah, I think overall it's just one of those stories that I think it has some of the best cliffhangers in classic Who.
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. I mean, the episode 4 cliffhanger is an absolute classic. With the Cybermen in the tunnel. Episode 6 as well, which, if you draw your attention behind me on your YouTube, you can see, with the Cybermen coming out the manholes and sort of heading down into from St. Paul's and stuff. There are some classic cliffhangers in there.
It was so good they did it twice. Not in this story, but they did it again.
They did, but I mean, obviously,
that was a
callback.
Yeah, I in a much lesser good Cyberman story, in my opinion. But
I mean, something else that really struck me when I reread it, when I rewatched it over the weekend, actually, and it's something that my friend Rob Cook mentioned when he found out I was watching it. The soundtrack to this, like the musical score, is just fantastic.
Even just the sound.
It is very James Bond, Avengers kind of spy stuff.
Yeah. No, the music really adds to this one. Like it sticks in your brain, and
yeah, it does.
It's very good, and I think every scene adds to it, because there's some classic, even today in Monhu, there's some soundtracks that just take away from it because they sound inherently bizarre, and not like they suit the situation whatsoever. So a character will say something, and he'll go ding ding ding, and just like go mental, and you're like, didn't need that. But in this story,
well done to composer Don Harper.
Don Harper.
On
Yeah.
Harper.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great job. I have to just want to say, I think part one is one of my favorite part ones of any story, because the Doctor, Jamie and Zoe get put in this place, and as a viewer, you have no idea what's going on. They've been told to get in the back of a van. You still don't know what's going on.
Introduction. It's an absolutely brilliant introduction.
You don't know whether to trust this man that said, right, I can take you to this place, but you've got to get in this car.
I mean, just
Ultimately,
prior to the Doctor, Jamie and Zoe landing on Earth, because just on the on the other side of the moon, the dark side of the moon, where you've got that Cyberman ship, they were actually fired upon, which actually made them land on Earth,
An emergency jump, yeah.
and then just landed and just there's a passing cow on the scanner, and they're in fits of laughter, wondering if they were on Earth.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and then like that, I think it's fabulous. And like I said, like John said, it's very dark. I mean, this guy, I'm really bad with names, but this guy gets shot pretty quickly. He's not in it very much. He gets off, and then you have,
Oh, what the guy who goes? Oh, you're not an IE property now.
Yeah, he's basically there to establish just how ruthless IE are.
Yeah.
And it works.
It works well. It's superb. I really like the character of Isabel. I think she's really good. A very powerful character. Again, say that I think the whoever did write the script for this. Again, my John has the page up or somewhere, but they did a very good job at making Zoe and Isabel, not become the screaming female, characters that sometimes classic Who would like to do. In this, they take charge and they push for better.
Do you think this might have been sort of like also a political statement about how these big corporate companies, how big, powerful, and corrupt they can actually be?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a major part of it, and the fact that I think it's very scary to think that could happen, and like one company they have everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think there's also a message in there about reliance and over reliance on technology, and how when you start to blur the lines between humanity and technology, it can get
messy.
dangerous.
Yeah, it can get messy.
Yeah,
and
there's a lot. There's some nice little themes in there to pick up.
Yep.
Around kind of, yes, we might have the technology to do some of these things now, but that doesn't necessarily mean we should.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm in fundamental agreement with you on that. And I think it shows kudos to the writing quality that that happened within the story, and that it's a story that you can come back to all the time and you can enjoy as well. It's got that message, it's got the fun, it's got the entertainment. On
average, I find myself watching it about once a year.
It's got the intrigue.
It is my, probably like you, it is my second favourite Trout and Us of the War games.
Yeah.
So yeah, I find myself coming back to it about once a year because
I think it shows as well. I know obviously it won't be, but I think apart from the Crotons, it shows how strong that last Troughton series is, with the Mind Robber, Invasion, Seeds of Death, War Games in it. They're all quality stories.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the Crotons and probably the Dominators isn't.
Yeah, they're not too great stories, those.
Dominators isn't too hot. I've heard the audio of the Space Pirates. I'm not going to make an official judgment on it until they get around to animating it, but obviously it's not a favourite.
No.
But there is an audio version of the novelisation coming out soon.
But the other full stories, I think, are impeccable episodes, and ones I always go back to. But yeah, I think this is a really strong story. I think all the main characters are on fire. And like I said, I think it's a script that, I mean, like me and John have had over the last few podcasts, where it's so good, there's not really much to say, because you can't really dig into it, because we'll say, oh yeah, that was really good. It happened with Guardians 1 and 2, because me and John are massive fanatics of the Guardians films, and we think they are nearly flawless. And this is one of those things again where, for me, everything's great. I have to give a shout out though, and this is my favorite line of dialogue in any Doctor Who story ever. When the Brigadier goes, "Can we fire anti-missile missiles at the?" I went, "What is an anti-missile missile?" I was like, "That's so 60s. Can we fire an anti-missile missile?" I was like, "What the fuck is an anti-missile missile?"
The missile used to shoot down a missile.
I thought it was fucking brilliant.
I mean, these days they'd probably call it an interceptor.
Yeah, I just have to admit, I loved how seriously he says that as well. It doesn't that was any bit that like full on. I know obviously it's a serious like dialogue, but that made me laugh watching it in the year of 2021 when Dick Courtney with all his heart says, "Can we fire the anti-missile missile?" I was there like going, "What?"
I mean, although this is really good and there's very little to pull apart from it, there's still some discussion points in there, because obviously it's a significant story in a few ways. It's the first cyber invasion in modern day contemporary Earth. Obviously, it's the introduction of UNIT. It's the first time that we get to see Sergeant Benton.
There's
a lot. There's a lot that stems out from this story and how good it was. For example, the third Doctor's era would have been very different if this story hadn't been successful.
Yeah. And also talking about John Levine playing Benton, he obviously didn't just play Benton in the story. He was also a stand-in as one of the Cybermen, which I do believe, and I have an art print here. Here we go, which you can see, which is in black and white. It's got an orange sky. Usually, it's this guy at the front here. And you can see because he's got a pipe dislodged on the leg. That's John Levine, Cyberman. So, for those who didn't know that.
Shortly before he burst into song.
Yeah, and he started singing, "There are places I remember all my life.
Though some have changed.
Some for better. No, some for ever, not for better. I don't fucking know. Someone needs to make that edit of if someone we know it's good.
Yeah, if somebody is intelligent enough to give us John Levine singing "In My Life" as a Cyberman, we'd be eternally grateful.
Yes, but absolutely. I mean, is there anything you guys want to bring up? Because I know that I've obviously there's going to be discussions. Even you guys are very good at coming up with discussions to talk about anyway. But anything in particular that we haven't touched on?
A little bit more about Packer. Packer's a fantastic henchman. He's also a fantastically useless henchman.
Yes.
How many times do they escape because Packer isn't very good at his job?
Find them, Packer! Find them!
Yeah. I've said as well, I do appreciate the writers that they don't take Packer on this arc of too much change. He stays very loyal to Vaughn, really. So the majority of the story, even though he gets a lot of shit, I think he's overall brilliant character. Yeah, again, he's played for laughs quite a bit because he's incredibly useless. But
still quite menacing, but useless.
Yeah, he has a presence to him.
Incompetent.
It's still one of my favorite Troughton moments of the story it's one of those moments. One of my favorite Troughton moments of the story is when they're by the lift and Troughton goes, "Okay, I'll speak to you because Zoe can't get harmed," and they obviously tricks him and says, "Oh, Vaughn's over there," and kicks him, and then they use the lift and breaks the lift.
Yeah,
it's brilliant. I think
they get past him so often with just schoolboy tactics, and like Packer gets angrier and angrier every time they get away.
I think it's top tier.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah, I think. Well, what's your favorite Packer moment, Owen?
Oh, I just think it's when Vaughn is screaming at him.
Fight them, Packer!
Find them!
I think we've got to give a shout out to Vaughn as well as being one of the underrated villains of Classic Who. He doesn't come up very much. But I think overall,
he does.
I've not seen him in many lists. I've not seen him in many
He
lists.
gets a lot of respect.
I've not seen him in many lists, so I'm going to be honest.
Well, you've not looked at the right list then. Yeah, no, yeah, he gets a lot of respect. Obviously, that's Kevin Stoney, and Kevin appears in a couple of our stories. He's also in the Dark Master Plan, and he's in Revenge of the Cybermen as well.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. He's in. He plays the Vogan, the Chief Vogan in.
Whenever we get round to that, we'll have to look out for that one.
Yeah, but yeah, he's very well known face, obviously very distinctive, and yeah, he's part of the reason that a lot of people love this story. So he's up there with with Harrison Chase from the Seas of Doom as like the great Bond villainesque baddies from Doctor Who.
I've not seen the Seeds of Doom yet, so that will come around to it when I do. This is the thing. I'm sort of scared now to watch Doctor Who stories in case
then the next Seeds of Doom.
The Tom Baker one.
Oh right, yeah, because I always get confused. Seeds of Doom, Seeds of Death. Yeah,
Tom Baker one.
Yeah, which is brilliant. Do watch it.
I will watch it when it comes up in
Punches
I was about to say, I'm always scared to watch it though, in case they come up in the hat, and then after I've seen it 2 weeks ago, I have to rewatch it because I've forgotten certain parts. So therefore, for review purposes, I would have. So I'm kind of scared now. That's why I've not dipped into one of the collection, the last 2 collection sets since we started doing this, because I'm worried to. I also think some of the enjoyment of this is me watching most classics for the first time, type thing.
And if you've ever seen Only Fools and Horses, it's also got Boise in it.
Mr. Chase. I'll sort out Mr. Chase. Yeah, but Boise is essentially the Packer. He's like the hard nut. He's like the hard nut thug.
Yeah.
Called Scorby.
Yeah, I have to again. Some of the funny moments for me, which they just create drama for drama's sake. It's more for it's when it turns out, they've all got these chips to survive, and then we cut back to Troughton, and suddenly his has fallen off, even though we don't see it. We just cut back. It's like, oh no, it must have fallen off. Well, how does that happen then? Troughton, he falls to the ground. It's brilliant. So we don't see it. He just does. I love that. So how could create drama? Oh shit, his thing fell off. Great. I think that's some brilliance. But again, I think now it's time to actually, get onto the kind of the climax and the invasion part of this, because there is some amazing imagery in those last 2 parts. Even like you said, the cliffhanger of part 6, but you do get the scale of it really well. You get some cool helicopter shots and stuff. They obviously blew the budget out for this story.
Yeah, I mean the action. I mean, it was another Dougie Camfield story, wasn't it? So you're gonna get those, you're gonna get all of those kind of big action shots and that kind of budget busting stuff because Dougie Camfield was just that kind of director.
Yeah, he's one of those directors that kind of he like to push the boundaries what you'd see in a classic story, and kind of it gives it such gravitas. I think like this genuinely feels like this could have been like a Cyberman movie, and it wouldn't really feel out of place. Because I can imagine, although we don't get to see it in part 4, where Jamie's holding on to the helicopter, that would have been a really cool. Obviously, it's a shame that story's lost. Part of the story's lost, because that would have been amazing to see. With Fraser holding on to the rope of the helicopters. The fact that he's gone, we're going to do this, and we're going to try and pull it off quite well, and that most of the time it goes quite well, apart from the anti-missile missile. Which is still my favorite thing.
I think when they eventually get round to doing that season collection box set, it's got to be the invasion. I mean, who the hell doesn't want to see the invasion on the big screen?
Yeah,
it's gonna happen, surely.
It's got to be. Let's do the war games. That'd be hilarious. All come down to the BFI.
You'll be there all bloody day.
I think the one thing possibly against it is its length.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they pack in.
I can tell you that John has never said the sentence before. The one thing going against it is its length. I can tell you that it's a John quit first?
Phil. Absolute Phil.
Yeah.
I'm the filth. I went, ooh.
Phil. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't see them doing more than a 6-part story at the BFI. But that's just me. They make too much money. They make too much money in the bar. They don't want to keep people in the cinema all day.
Right, Mind Robber it is then, please.
Yeah, Mind Robber, Seeds of Death.
Yeah, I think overall that season's been really good. And again, it's one of those things
I still
where
think the Invasion personally.
the invasion would be good. I'd watch it, but
You'd be sat in the auditorium.
I mean, obviously,
you would be
how many
sat in
parts
the
is it?
auditorium like with all the extra
8.
stuff. You'd be sat in the auditorium
8
for
parts.
4.5.
Okay, so yeah, 4 episodes, a
Hello?
break, go to the bar for and an intermission, and then go back and then watch the next 4 parts. Pissed. Happy days.
You'd be sat in the auditorium for 4.5 hours.
John just wants his drink.
I do.
He just wants his booze. That's all he wants.
I want a beer.
He wants his beer. Yeah, I think again, I'd agree. I mean, the good thing. I mean, for some people that don't go to these events, this discussion may seem meaningless, but I mean, I can't wait to go to my next one. To my first one to watch Dragonfire, and that was a lot of fun. We had a good time. I sat near John, didn't I? It was me and Macaulay in the back corner. We had a good time. Just chilling. The good thing about watching, I will say this as well. If you ever do go, if you watch this and you do go to the BFI, if you sit near John, you're lucky because he'll make noise at any innuendo he can, and it's me. And I think obviously because it was distance, but I still had somebody in front of me, and he looked behind me, and I was just chuckling at random bits because John had made a ooh sounds, and it was just it made me laugh anyway. I thought it was great. Yeah, John's a laugh, and you also get to meet Sparky in person. So if that's not worth it, I don't know what is. It's worth.
I mean, only if you know me,
Yeah,
but I'm not saying that random. But we're not saying that random listeners to the podcast can come up and say hello to Sparky.
No, you have to pay the entry fee first. It's 20 quid a meet for Sparky. He's busy.
I'm thinking of putting the price up actually.
Have you consulted Sparky on that? What's he thinking?
Oh.
You have to pay. You have to pay a fee to say hello to the working dog.
I'm his agent. He leads me to it.
Also, the Spark in person, if you do know John and get the absolute chance to meet said dog, is lovely. Very, very, very fun friend. But yeah, again, I think going back to the invasion properly, it's one of those stories that you never kind of predict what's going to happen in the last 2 parts. You don't know whether Vaughn is going to be he's going to actually overthrow the Cybermen, whether he's going to get defeated in the end, whether he's going to switch sides, which is what he ultimately does. I do like the fact though that he never changes his morals. He still goes, if I'm going to help you, I'm helping you out because I don't like them. I'm not helping you now because I want to save you. I do like that bit of dialogue. I think that's great. Yeah. In fact, he's like, if I'm going to say, I'm doing this not because I want to save you, because I hate them. I think that's class, and I think the writing there is brilliant.
Yeah, it just works.
Especially because in most stories, the villain will turn and they'll realize that what they were doing was wrong and they were doing it for good reasons. But Vaughn is just an out and out dick, and he's only in it for himself. He couldn't give a whatever about anyone else but himself.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Yeah,
and I think it's brilliant. And even those shots of Troughton and who's the actor playing Vaughn again?
Kevin Stoney.
Yeah,
Kevin Stoney walking around London. It's top tier. I think those those last bits where Troughton's obviously working with somebody that he knows is an absolute prat. I like the fact as well that for most of the story, so maybe about part 3, if I'm not mistaken, he has to pretend that he doesn't hate this man. And
there's a funny story. I don't know if John knows of it. About so basically, someone had been going around saying that Kevin Stoney had died. And then one day at a convention, Kevin Stoney then turns up to this person and says, "I do believe you've been telling people I'm dead." Which, I mean, the person who tells me this story every time, I just find it hilarious. I mean, I can't tell the story as well as them, But yeah, I just find it hilarious. But and then you had a very recent thing with Tony Selby, where
Yeah.
someone had mistaken him for a TV producer.
I mean,
So yeah,
just to clarify, Kevin Stoney is dead now.
Yeah.
yes, Kevin Stoney is dead now. Yes,
Yes.
He wasn't
and
at the
that's what
time of
Tony
this story, but
Selby.
he is
It was the
now.
actor who is still alive, not the. I mean, the producer had died, not the actor. So yeah.
By the way, I just want to say, although we use this sort of anecdote, our thoughts and prayers go to the family of Tony Selby, the producer, because I did kind of feel bad with the memes going around. I was like, somebody had still died. Like, although it was kind of bizarre and sort of weird, I do think that has to be said that the family lost somebody, and our thoughts and prayers go to them.
Yeah, there were some idiots. There were some idiots out there, kind of when it turned out it was a different person, going, "Oh, thank God!" And it's like, well, hang on a minute. Not for the other bloke or for his family. You know, you show a bit of respect. But yeah,
Of
we don't
course,
see much of that these days.
of course, we are happy that our good man Glitz is still going.
I mean, we had to
Glitz,
wait,
Happily,
overnight
and
to
happily
find out,
retired.
is he dead?
And happily retired.
Glitz for Series 13.
No, he's retired.
Well, we can come back for Doctor Who. Glitz for Series 13. Jodie versus.
Amazing.
I think we'd all love it, even if it's like a little cameo on a planet.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
not
if they can bring back Alpha
I'm
Centauri,
not.
they can bring back Glitz.
I'm not expressing any opinion on potential Jodie stories. You get shouted at.
Yeah, I can't wait until we pull one out the hat, and I'm like, John, you've got to come on to chat about it, and he'll be like, no, I don't want to. And I'll be
Tony
asking
Selby
to.
just turns up on Doctor Who. I'm still not dead.
But it's like that scene in the IT code. I don't know if you've seen it. But Victoria, I thought you were dead. So yeah, guys, I think overall, I'll go one by one. I'll say to John first. Do you want to give you a wrap up and your overall score of the invasion, or is there anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't talked about before we do wrap up?
I'm happy to wrap up. This is a Stone Cold classic. It's probably my top 20 stories of all time. It's definitely my second favourite Troughton after the War Games. Perfect 1960s Doctor Who. You know, he just captures that swinging London of the late 60s and then throws Cybermen into it. It's pretty much perfection. I don't have the issue with the pacing that some of us might. It's a 10 for me. I love it.
Owen, next to you.
Well, I love the invasion. Not going to lie. I mean, various merchandise that I own. I mean, I've got a print. I've got a DVD, and I've also got an Eagle Moss figure and various other things.
It's
So,
almost like he works at the Who shop.
I mean, can I ask you about your Eagle Moss figure?
Don't even go there. I know where you're going with it. It's probably my third, no, second, no. Oh, I don't know.
It's one of your favourites.
My second or third favourite Cyberman story. It's my second favourite Troughton story.
What's your favourite?
My favourite would be Tomb of the Cybermen.
Yeah,
because I mean, I just find there's something just lovely, warm, and wholehearted about.
You're a big fan of the characterization of Toberman. You're a big fan of the characterization of Toberman and how fleshed out he is as a character.
I mean, for me, it's the bonding between Victoria and the Doctor.
Oh, mate,
and they just have that lovely, intimate moment about
we'll get to that down the line.
Yeah, but yeah.
I mean, that is one of that when that gets pulled out of the hat. I mean, that is one of the best individual scenes in the history of the show.
Yes, yeah. absolutely. But what would you give out of 10?
9.
Yeah, for me, I'm in the same boat as John and Owen. I think it's a stone cold classic. It's one of the best Doctor Who stories ever in terms of gravitas and how important the stakes feel. And especially in 1960, I think it's pulled off to perfection. There's never a moment where the story, feels unimportant and there's something not going on. However, I feel like it needs to be 8 parts long? No, but then again, there's some people like the slower moments, like John does. So I ain't gonna take that away. I think the performances are all top notch. I think the dialogue is some of the best it's ever been in Classic Who. The anti-missile missile is one of the best lines ever said. And yeah, I think it's great. It's probably one of my fourth favorite Troughton behind War Games, To the Cybermen, and Enemy of the World. When those are the other favorite Troughtons, this story is not in bad stead. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 9 as well. I think it's quality. It's one that I can always go back to. It's one that I think even fans of the Mon series should check out. I know some people do struggle with the classic way things are run, but I think you'll enjoy this one. I think you'll enjoy how big it is and how kind of grand the story is. So I'd check it out. And, I think Vaughn's one of the best classic villains of all time. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Owen and John, it's prediction time as I check the old classic randomizer. What we saying?
See, I've seen no proof that this is random.
It is. It's on a random a random name picker.com.
I think
So
you
if you
should
got-
screen. I think you should.
I will I will screen share it once I get it up. Hang on 2 seconds.
Oh,
I'll screen share it once I get it up.
Probably not
oh,
the first time you said
I
that.
get, but the issue is I can't screen share it to the viewers because the viewers can't see the screen share. So I'll screen share it after the recording. All right, I'll show you it's done because they won't see it. They'll just see a blank screen and then it fucks the YouTube up. So that's what I'll do. I'll show you after the recording. Because for me, because I did Drunk Watch Songs, I ticked the thing on my Zoom settings that it doesn't record the screen share, so that then it doesn't record the sound of it, so that I don't get absolutely destroyed by the audio world censors of the watch alongs. So what's our predictions?
What do you mean prediction in terms of story, Doctor, or what?
It can be whatever. Story, Doctor, both.
I think it's going to be a Tom Baker story. Just playing the odd.
I'd like to see an Eccleston story.
I see an Eccleston story. Okay. Ooh, interesting. Okay, well, hang on. Let me.
He says that already knowing what it is.
I don't. I clicked it just then. I always wait for your prediction. I have to go back into color. And I have to say one word, and you'll pick up on it. Hungry.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
Owen, would you like to reveal what episode it is if you get one?
So that would be the Idiot's Lantern.
It would indeed. 2006's.
I don't mind that story.
There's what's your opinions on it, John? Will you be joining us for that one, or do you not care?
It's Rose Tyler.
So does that mean that he'll be there?
I think it probably does mean I'll be there.
Fantastic. Anything you guys want to plug quickly?
There you go. I'm in colour as well now. There you go.
Yeah. Anything you guys want to plug?
Well, we've got signed editions of the Wall School Limited Edition Script Doctor book coming out. So by the time this podcast comes out, I think
it's Monday.
The book will then be available. So check it out if you want to read all about the Cartmel master plan.
Yes, absolutely. Anything you want to plug, John?
Not really. Just to say, it's Disability Pride Month. Be nice to disabled people, give them jobs, pay them, employ them, promote them, have sex with them.
Yes, especially the latter. No, obviously I'm joking, but
no, definitely, especially the latter.
Yes.
I also want to plug this action figure.
Where would you like to plug it, Owen?
I knew he was going to say that.
No.
Alex?
No.
Alex?
Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
No. No, you can't.
No need to call me that.
Yeah, you're recording.
That's the point you stop recording.
No, that's not where I stop recording because I have
Yeah,
to say
it has to finish on. It has to finish on. No need to call me that. It's a perfect ending.
no, because we have to say this is that make sure to check out the Black Widow podcast if you hadn't watched it yet. It's a thing that was out recently, so please do check that out for sure. Me and John would have gone in detail with that, so please do check it out.
It's Connor joining us for that one.
He doesn't know yet. Well, you'll know now, so I'm gonna say probably, but you'll know he would have been there if he's there. If he's not there, then he wasn't there.
Okay.
But there was also going to be some, I believe, John, you've also in that podcast we talked about some disability things as well that you've got planned to talk about, which obviously we would have already talked about. That's why I don't like Toby Wimey podcast. But hey, that's the order we're doing it. Next week, me and Connor are talking about Black Panther, and Connor doesn't like that film, so it's gonna be a fun podcast. So check that one out.
Cancel him.
Yes, cancel him. And then me, Owen and John will be back soon for Avengers Infinity War and then Endgame. So
And
it's
me
all
and
kicking off.
Macaulay still need to do the Dalek invasion Earth 2150 AD, don't we, Alex?
It's not me to plan. Macaulay's a busy man now. He's got a job.
Do you not?
Well, I tell you what, we'll do it in August.
Why do you not want Macaulay on the podcast?
We had Macaulay on the podcast very recently to talk about Spider-Man Homecoming. But yeah, no, honestly, guys, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. It's exciting. See you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye.